Well, hi. Not sure who here was in the session I was in earlier. About half the room. Cool. So for the other half of the room, so then the other people here can attest, I like an interactive crowd. If y'all would pipe in, I may ask you questions. If you don't pipe up, you're going to kind of freak me out, and this is going to be really boring and lame. I mean, it still might be boring and lame, I don't know, but it's, I need y'all's help. So, wanted to talk today about managing your online presence, which is a really fun way to say social media and the online review sites. So we're going to talk first the thrilling, riveting topic of how the internet works. I promise I'll go fast. Then we're going to chat about Twitter, then Facebook, and review sites. A lot of what you can take from Twitter and Facebook apply everywhere else. So we're going to be doing some common learnings, but I don't want to, give you all a 30-minute spiel on Tumblr or anything like that. So first, talking about how the internet works, and more specifically, how it doesn't work. This is what I see a lot of out in the world, is some well-intentioned, albeit misguided, retailer will get on social media and treat it like a soapbox. They will stand on top of their soapbox and tell everybody how great I am. Look at me, I'm great, my store is amazing, you should pay attention to me, which is how I enter the Wizards of the Coast building each day, not how you should behave on the internet. And why shouldn't you do that is because, great, you're saying these things, you'll notice that there's nobody there, and sometimes even when there is somebody there, they certainly don't care. Nobody ever wants to see a promotion, nobody likes hearing somebody talk about themselves. They like being the subject. They like being what's talked about. You should be serving the people that you're talking to. So really what's going on out in the world is something more like this. Your customers are out there and they're talking about you, and other people are listening, but it's not you, it's other customers. Now you may be involved in this conversation, but the thing is this conversation will happen whether you're there or not. This comes up on Facebook, on Twitter, on review sites. It comes up on pretty much anywhere that somebody could talk about you, they will talk about you. So it's really just a matter of how will you react to that situation. So let's talk about starting with social media. The thing I want to make sure that I made clear, this is not soapbox media, this is social media. You are social on social media. That means that there's kind of an important takeaway. This is my grandmother, and totally not a photo that I got whenever I Googled Russian babushka. Promise. But something my grandmother did used to tell me is you've got 2 blank and 1 blank for a reason. Do y'all know what that would be? You've got 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. And what's that reason?
You listen 2 times as much.
Listen twice as much as you talk. That is, if there's a rule on social media, that's it. Do not go out there and beat your war drum and tell everybody about how amazing you are. Listen first, then respond. Listen twice as much as you talk. Find what your customers are interested in and respond. Ask open-ended questions, get them to talk. So, let's take that and let's jump into Twitter. I know it's always weird to start with Twitter first instead of Facebook. The reason we're doing this is because a lot of what we're going to talk about with regards to Twitter is applicable on Facebook, but it's not necessarily the other way around. This is a good foundational tool. So a quick question in the room before we jump into this. Who here is on Twitter? That's so wild. That's awesome. I love seeing that many people on Twitter. By the way, if you all were not aware, chilling out down here at the bottom of our screen is our new WPN Twitter handle. We listen, and we'll sometimes talk with you. Thank you, one person who laughed at that. So I want to talk to you about 5 things to do with Twitter. Here's 5 lessons to take away and work with on Twitter. This is a Happy Harbor Comics. Off chance, are they in the room? Neat. Then I don't feel bad. So no, actually, they're doing the right thing here. You'll notice up at the top, Buff Billy Boom, which I still can't say that with a straight face, is asking, can Superman fly without the cape? And so what's Happy Harbor Comics doing? They're getting involved in a conversation that's already happening. You'll notice that, yes, somebody did alert them to the conversation, but they're answering somebody's question. Great. That's really the starting point to running a quality Twitter account. Respond all the time. So here's Exalted Games. Is Exalted Games in the room? Great, I don't feel bad. Eventually there's going to be one of these, it's going to be bad. No, Exalted Games does an outstanding job here. What they say is, we've got lots of awesome and diverse legacy decks here lately, most of them combo. What archetypes do you like right now? We love Storm. Now, what sort of response are they going to get to this? You don't like Storm, what do you like? You like junk. What else? What other types of response are they going to get?
Combo's the best.
Combo's the best. Great, yay, combo. There's like people frowning at that in the room. It's so funny watching up here. I don't like combo. Y'all chill, it's an example. So, no, and what have they done here? They've asked an open-ended question. We like this, what do you like? Respond to us. They're going to draw in people engaging with them. So when they did get on their soapbox, they didn't say, hey, everybody come play at Exalted Games, we're fantastic. They said, hey, come to Exalted Games because we're playing a lot of Legacy. What sort of Legacy decks do you like? There's a big difference in how people are going to engage with that. Now, meanwhile, I told you there's going to be some bad examples in here. I will not tell you who this is, I know. They said, attention, there's absolutely no selling or buying cards among yourselves in the shop. You do that, you're banned. Thanks. So, here's the deal. I understand they are well-intentioned, and I do not care about your trading policies. I seriously don't. If y'all say trading's allowed in your store or not allowed in your store, it makes me no difference. But what sort of response is this going to get?
Hate flame.
Hate flames. I see a bunch of thumbs down at the back of the room.
Grammar Nazis.
Grammar Nazi. Why? What's wrong with this post? The wrong your. It's as if I knew. There's actually a little bit more wrong with this post than just your. So, fun story on this. The content manager for the WPN website, Nina Hess, is my employee and keeps me in line. I made sure to call her over because in her previous life, what she did is she did editing for New York Times best-selling books. So no matter how good I think my grammar is, it's not. And so called her over to help check this out. So these, yeah, it's a little, this could be better. But exactly, what are they doing? They're saying, here's things that you're not allowed to do, and I'm making demands of my customers who may or may not be reading this in the first place. That's not going to get a good response. We like open-ended questions. We like positive questions. Keep it positive. Keep it happy. So another example of there's room for improvement. On Twitter, you have the option of setting a background. In this case, they chose default blue, I believe is that color. And you're also defaulted to having, instead of an image of, say, your store logo, you're defaulted to having an egg picture until you set something different. Now, another thing I want to call out here is you'll notice down here, and for the folks in the back of the room who do not have 40/20 eyesight, this tweet was on April 14th. This tweet was on April 24th. I took this screenshot in August. So there's a couple things going on there. One, you never want to have a dormant social media presence. If you're going to get on, dedicate. Dive into it, have a blast. And two, if you're going to get on Twitter, don't wait 10 days between announcements. Twitter is nonstop, just stream of information. If you're only saying this one tiny thing, this one tiny time, it's going to get missed. You're not going to have a very good time of things. Now, meanwhile, we've got Heroic Night Games. Now, is Heroic Night Games in the room? Eventually, I will get a winner on this. I have more examples, I promise. So, Heroic Night Games, what have they done? They've gone through and they've taken a picture of their store. Fantastic. If I come to the Twitter page of Heroic Night Games, who I'm going to say their name like 5 or 6 more times, I get to see Heroic Night Games. Yay. Now, furthermore, they're not an egg. They've got their logo up here. And every time they tweet, we're going to see Heroic Night Games logo go by. Now, that's not going to matter just in any one individual tweet, but over time you're building up an awareness, a brand awareness, an awareness of what your logo is, that your name is sticking top of mind with people. You'll also notice over here that they filled out their bio. We know that they're in Issaquah. And we see that when I took this screenshot again in August, that the last time they tweeted was 15 hours ago. Great. I don't need you to tweet every hour, but I need you to tweet every once in a while. So this is an awesome example of that. And then on top of that, what did they tweet? They said they spent most of the day rearranging the display behind the counter, moved the shelving for MTG up higher. So they're saying, here's what's going on in my store. Isn't this fantastic? This is what we're doing. So when you come in and you see something different, you know. Great. And then this is tied in somewhat, and also I stole this because quite honestly, it's promoting the new products, and we might as well show it to the room. Buy D&D. Here's Gamescape North saying, hey, the wait's over. Here's the new D&D Player's Handbook and Horde of the Dragon Queen. And what do? They used a photo. You ever heard that picture's worth 1,000 words thing? Yeah, Twitter, you only have 140 characters, but you can certainly put photos up. This tells the story a whole lot better in somebody's feed as it's scrolling by than saying, oh, by the way, we have these things. You can tell a lot of stories with just having some fun with photography. I believe everybody in this room should have a camera sitting in their pocket. There is zero excuse to not use photography nonstop all over the place. In fact, I meant to do this because I think it'd be fun to do. Hi. Oh, here, I'm going to get you in the shot too. I'm doing this because I'm going to put that on our WPN Twitter account later. Don't think that I won't. Hope nobody was making a funny face or throwing any hand gestures. So just as a quick recap on all this Twitter stuff. One, I want you to go out. I want you, when you're on Twitter, make sure that you're joining conversations. Get off your soapbox. Get involved with people. Nobody likes the guy who bursts in the room and just says, look at me, me, me. Whenever you are getting on your soapbox and trying to broadcast, make sure that you're drawing people in. Do something that people are going to, A, respond to, and B, respond to in the way that you want them to. Don't invite trolls in. Keep your tweets positive, which is the same, tying into the same thing. Oh my God, don't be an egg. Do not let me catch any of you doing this, and I know some of you do. On to you. There's like one guy in back I'm just pointing at for no reason. I have no clue if he did it or not. And then use photos. High-res photos are fantastic if you can get away with them, but any photos will do. So now let's check about success stories in the room on Twitter. Has anybody had some fun on Twitter? Anything that went well on Twitter for you? It's just a disaster. Everybody's on it. Oh, yes, sir. A game store and a what? Brew store, like brewing. Brew store. I thought you said broom store. I was like, that's odd, but clean. Brew store, okay. Awesome.
We're taking all the different hops to make different character names for D&D for the release.
So you were taking pictures of the different hops, or taking the names of the different hops and making them into character names. Do you have an example? Zythos the Sorcerer? Saz the Wizard, Bud the Light. No, please don't sell Bud Light. Nobody likes Bud Light. He said it, not me, camera. Okay, so anybody else in the room have any success on Twitter? Nobody at all. So everybody's on Twitter and it's just broadcast, broadcast, broadcast? Yes, sir. No. No, you're not having any success.
No.
Oh, no, you are having success.
No, not that either.
Oh, okay.
I am on Twitter.
You're on Twitter.
I'm unsuccessfully on Twitter in comparison to my Facebook page.
Facebook, okay.
My Facebook page is by far the thing I put the most energy into, and it shows.
Mm-hmm.
I've tried linking my Twitter page so that one cross-promotes the other.
Mm-hmm.
I just, you know what? It just seems like most of my customers are on Facebook. Not as many are on Twitter. So I kind of downplay Twitter. I'm the egg guy.
You're the egg guy.
With an egg there. And I'm looking at what you're saying, and I'm hearing it. I'm like, I gotta fix that now.
Well, and that's the thing is, you never want to be the egg guy. So, and just to repeat, so the room here's there, what you're saying is you're putting a lot of energy into Facebook, which is an awesome segue, not as much into Twitter, and you're seeing people engage on Facebook, but not as much on Twitter. And I think, yeah, I know those, no, exactly, I was about to say, those two may be related. But no, and here's the deal. Facebook has more people on it, just period. Just at first blush, you're probably going to get a little bit more engagement on Facebook. Facebook also comes with some fun baggage. On Twitter, you get to see, if somebody tweets, you see it. The fun thing on Facebook, and this is a little challenging, is if you post something on Facebook, if it's not promoted, the last stat I heard was between 2 and 5% of your followers will see it, unless they go to your Facebook page itself. It won't just scroll through their feed, because Facebook likes to make money. So that, you know, they kind of throttle that sort of stuff for businesses, which is fine, no judgment here, but it does mean that getting your message out there can be a little bit more challenging. But that's good to hear that you're taking some of that to heart. Maybe now, segueing into Facebook, there's a few things out there that we definitely want to chat about. One is making sure that all of your information is out there. And when I say all of the information's out there, I mean every piece of Facebook that you can fill in, go fill in. And I know that this is one of those things that it's a little bit of a pain to do, to say, okay, what can I write about my store to make me stand out and be different? What sort of description can I give? Do I really have to fill in my hours? Yes. Yes, oh my God, fill in your hours, guys. But just really going through and making sure that all of the information's there, and this is a big critical one right here, is under website, making sure that your website is listed on Facebook. This is an odd, I don't know what's going on here, but recently we went through, when setting up the WPN website, we started following a bunch of retailers on Twitter, which is how I know about the eggs. So we start following, and so to hunt down Twitter handles, we were going and checking Facebook pages and going and checking websites. See, can we find the Twitter handle if it's there? In some cases, yes, in some cases, no, but we wound up looking at a ton of Facebook pages. And there is an astronomically high number of Facebook pages out there that don't have a website URL on them. And when there's no website, when you're operating your business off Facebook, totally cool, rock on, I fully support that. But if there is a website out there that represents your business, these two should be connected. We definitely want to do that, because great, somebody may get to this page once. You want to make sure that you're getting in front of your customer as much as humanly possible, that there's no kind of excuse for them not to have gone to your website in any way, shape, or form. If you can put it in front of them, do. So just make sure that you're filling all of this stuff out. The other thing is vanity URLs. On Facebook, you can go in and say, I'm going to change my URL from facebook.com/8364HW blah, 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 into just whatever word I want it to be. Say perhaps your business name. This is a wonderful example here. This is Astro Kitty Comics, who get to be on the presentation because their name is Astro Kitty Comics, which is pretty fantastic. But it's pretty straightforward. Just do a quick search, type in your browser Facebook vanity URL. It will drop you on the right page. But just go through, make sure that you're setting that up. So the reason why you want to do that is you want to be able to tell people to go to your Facebook page. It's one thing to say, hey, find me on Facebook. It's another to say, hey, find me on Facebook, I'm right here. You never want to give your customers an excuse to not find you. It's the exact same thing as putting your URL on your Facebook page. Don't ever give them a reason not to. That doesn't mean that everybody will suddenly be flooding your Facebook page, but it certainly means that you've removed a barrier from that. So, much in the same vein as Twitter in the background area, the image up at the top of your Facebook page, the timeline photo, that is a resource, and I would strongly, strongly encourage y'all to use it. These wonderful people at Village Hobbies and Games are using the M15 digital marketing assets that we make available to everybody, cheap plug. But these are available for download on the WPN website, but by all means, feel free to make your own. But think of it in this way. If you're going to get people coming to your Facebook page, and specifically to your Facebook page, not just hoping that you'll show up in their timeline feed, the first thing that they're going to see at the top of the page is that image, whether they're on mobile or whether they're on their desktop. If that's going to happen, if you're expecting those two behaviors to happen, make sure that the message that you want to be in front of them is sitting right there. So in this store's case, they wanted to make sure everyone that visited their page was aware that game day was coming up. Now, I would encourage you to do that for all of your con stuff, but between now and when cons comes out, by all means, do Friday Night Magic, do anything. Put anything on there, but make sure that you're delivering a message through that medium. It's some, one of those things where, again, Facebook likes to make money. This is free. So you might as well take advantage of it if it's out there. So I know that we talked about photos. Want to chat on photos specifically. A couple things that I wanted to point out in here. This is Arkham Games. Notice up here we've got singles with, we've got new products, and we've got calendars. Yes, it's great to show things like generic promo here, but more importantly, I love seeing, look, people having fun in my store. Here's what's coming up in the near future. So, and we'll touch on events here in a second, but here's what's coming up on the horizon, and taking advantage of that photo. Fantastic, because you're getting your message in front of people through a different medium. Same applies here, same applies here. Going through and making sure that you're putting your photos to work for you is huge. It's something where I want to encourage everybody here, don't get on Facebook and coast. This is very much like the open-ended questions on Twitter. Make sure that you're thinking, what sort of behavior do I want to drive with my post? And if it's photos, same thing there. Is it, I want to show people having a blast in my store? Is it, I want to make sure that they see what calendar events I have, or what events I have coming up? Make sure that you're taking full advantage of that. And on the events, there is zero excuse, guys. Always, always, always put every event that's running in your store on your events page on Facebook. This is something that I had to search so long to find this. It was ridiculous. Like I hit so many different Facebook pages out there where I was like, I don't know, what do they got going on? Oh, apparently nothing. What about this guy? Also nothing. None of these stores run Friday Night Magic. And clearly they do, because I can see their results, but they're not taking advantage of this page. You want to, again, it goes back to that one core concept, never give your customer an excuse not to find the information. So I don't want to guilt trip you, but yes, I do. Oh my gosh, so do this. So just real quick recap on Facebook. I want you to go out there, I want you to fill in all of your info. I want you to go up and set up that vanity URL, so make sure that people can find you, make sure it's nice and easy. Then go through, optimize that space that you're given, make sure everything is filled in, put your photos to work for you, and then make sure they're taking full advantage of that events calendar, because that's so huge, especially for our business. Like for our industry, we run weekly events, in some cases daily events. That event section really for Facebook is going to be built out more for, like, here's our special event coming up. This is like the world's best tool that's been provided to us free of charge by the wonderful people in Palo Alto. So with regard to Facebook, is there anybody in the room has a success story, anything that they've seen working really well, or in some cases not working well? Yes, sir.
Although Facebook doesn't show your message to everyone, you can invite all your friends to events. So pretty much I friended all my customers, and every day, like every Monday, we run a modern event at night. Every Sunday, I invite everyone for these events on Monday, and you can sort them by groups. So for the modern event, every day I invite the people that are part of the modern group to the event.
That's awesome. So to repeat that, you've friended a bunch of people on Facebook and kind of segmented them into groups based on their play style, and then invite them to events based on that. Now, that's fantastic. I do want to call out one thing, and this is just kind of a word of caution. Not saying this is inherently wrong, but I do know that Facebook tends to police people pretty closely on businesses set up as individuals, and they will go through and take a profile down.
Exactly, but I did it as a person because I work at my store, and I'm
Perfect. As you're a person, an actual individual, inviting them as your friend, that's fantastic. I'm so happy you said that, because I was going, please tell me that's what he did. But I just wanted to make sure that was clear to everybody, that you set up if you're going to set up as a person, you're an actual person. So my Facebook profile would be Paul Hagen, and my events or my store would be an entirely different page. Those two, just make sure that you're keeping a close eye on that and keeping those two separate. I know you had one here.
Yeah. The digital assets that you guys have available to download, I use those all the time.
Use the digital assets all the time?
I'll
Awesome.
grab the Facebook banners or whatever, and for my special events, I'll put all the info on that. I'll Photoshop it, and then I'll just upload that to Twitter That's the event, that's all the pertinent information.
That's fantastic. So you go in and drop the details of your event on the digital marketing assets and then post that to Facebook, post that to Twitter. So you're taking advantage of photos and the digital marketing asset. That's awesome. Awesome. Anybody else have a story they want to share? Yes, ma'am.
Well, I opened my store just in April.
Okay.
So, and my page was recently new. What I did is that I set up store promos and discounts based on the amount of likes the page got. So,
Nice.
500 likes, for 24 hours, everything is 5% discount. 1,000 likes, 10% discount. So that's really moving up.
That's awesome. So you incentivize people in saying, hey, once we hit these thresholds and likes or what have you, and into making sure that they're, you incentivize that by providing a discount or other fabulous prizes once you hit these thresholds, which then grows your audience in the right way, because I'm assuming that you're really targeting customers with that.
Yep, they have to go to the store to really.
Exactly. Fantastic. So, and that's a good point/takeaway that I want to make sure to share with the room, is that when you do incentivize likes or follows or what have you, no matter what the platform is, if you're incentivizing it, make sure that that incentivization works for your business. So I can go out anywhere and say, I'll give you $100 to get me X number of followers. Those are going to be probably not the highest quality of follows. But when you say, hey, once I hit this threshold on likes, then there's going to be a discount in the store. Hey, there's going to be this special event in the store. Now all of a sudden it's a whole different world, because it's, okay, cool, that just means business coming into the door and through the doors. So anybody else? Cool. So last thing I want to chat about is online reviews. That'd be on Yelp or any number of other different sites out there. This really applies to pretty much everybody. This is a real world example. Do not search for this, because I changed a couple of the words in here so you couldn't. But this is not quite verbatim an actual review that got left for an actual store that I hold in pretty high regard. It says, when we picked out our game and went to checkout, we were ignored when there weren't any other customers waiting. The clerk was just talking to a coworker about his character in a game. 2 stars. Boo hiss. Yeah, well, apparently it was clean or something, I don't know. So here's the deal. I want to take a couple of things away from this. The first is really about these stars. I want to share with you a story about Google and something that they did, about like 2 years ago. Do you remember a while back they had the star system, and then they switched over to Zagat ratings, the 30-point scale? And then now it's this weird mishmash of it's like terrible, pretty good, okay, great. It's like this weird, I don't even know what the scale is. The reason they initially moved away from the star system is because Google, which their campus is filled with lots of smart people, went through and said, the average population just doesn't review. It's either the people who had a really terrible experience or a really great experience. That middle 80% don't review nearly as much. So what that winds up doing to reviews on the star system is you wind up with about 3.5 stars after you hit a certain threshold. Almost universally, it's just 3.5 stars, which is, fine. They were trying in their best way to go, oh, well, this is a problem. We'll fix it by introducing a system nobody understands. And went and introduced this Zagat system, which is also fine, but clearly the public didn't dig it and just didn't use it, so they went to their weird, Sarite system. And I have no idea how that's working. But I'm just making fun of it for no reason. But kind of the takeaway there is Google, which again, lots and lots of smart people in one building, or several buildings, looked at the star system and went, this isn't really telling us a whole lot. So I want y'all to keep that perspective whenever you get a review out there and you say, oh, somebody gave me 1 star and they said, terrible things about me. Yeah, because it's the extremes that tend to review in general. So take a deep breath before you get rolling on anything. The second thing I want to do is put up some really cheesy stock photography, and I'm going to say something really cheesy to you. I want you to wear your customer's eyeglasses. I want you to look at things through the customer's perspective. And I know I'm just like a giant dork for saying that in front of the room. But I want y'all to take, when you take that deep breath and you take that step back, put on your customer's eyeglasses, look at things from their perspective. Because do you think this person went out there and said, I know how I'll show them. I'll tell everybody a story about how I got ignored briefly. Stick the knife in and twist it. No, they probably had this experience, and from their perspective, this is what happened. That's, gosh, that's tough, and we never want that to happen. We never want somebody to leave a shop feeling that way. Whether that's the actual sequence of events or somebody rolled up to the counter, a conversation got finished, and then 10 seconds later they were getting served, irrelevant, because that customer's perception is that they were wronged. Minutes passed while they just stood there holding their product saying, I wish to buy this game, please. And the retailer laughed maniacally as they didn't ring them up. Like, I know that it's not always accurate, but the thing is it's accurate from their perspective. That's something to keep in mind. Now, you need to respond sometimes, and that's really important. Sometimes respond. There's a couple ways that you can handle it when you do choose to respond. This is an actual quote. This one you can look up. Please don't. I've omitted a word. My boss is at the back of the room. So they said, I've attempted to explain the situation I've been in, but you couldn't care less, and you didn't give something or other. So now, there's no good end to this situation. If I go out there and I read this, and this is the store owner, is there any version of this where I'm on their side as an impartial third party? I see, fortunately, like nobody said no, but there's one person shaking his head. Like, seriously, is there anybody in here who has an example where you go, oh yeah, no, this is clearly just with this tiny bit of information, this is a reasonable individual? Great. So don't do this, which is fine. And here's the deal. I know exactly what happened here. This person felt attacked. They looked at it from their perspective, not the customer's, and said, this person's a jerk and they're treating me wrong, and I've been through tough times lately, and I'm really hungry and angry. I'm hangry, and now I'll really tell them how it is. I will distribute internet justice on this person. And I get the line of thought. There's no version of this that works for you. What does work for you is you can say, hey, look, I'm sorry that happened. Can we chat when you have a moment? I want to see if we can make this right. Can you contact me at this number? Now, if I come and see, if I'm, again, an impartial third-party observer, and I see this, what I see is somebody going, I acknowledge your issue. And hey, I want to help see if I can make it right. I'm not saying I will absolutely 100% make it right. I cannot hop in the DeLorean, go back to when you were getting rung up, and save you from this tragedy. But what I can do is see if I can make it right in some way, shape, or form. And here, let's take the conversation offline. And if there is anything, if you're going to write down any one thing today, if there's one tiny bit of information to take away today, it's always, always, always take the negative experiences, take the conversation offline. There is no version of an internet pissing contest that you will wind up on the winning side of. It is a terrible, terrible, I shouldn't say that in front of the room. I saw one person make a face. I'm like, oh, that's great. Don't ever get into an argument online. And in fact, I believe there you go. Don't be this guy. Do not get into internet arguments. There is no version of this that you wind up on the winning side of. People like the underdog. They like the person who's feels like they're being picked on. If you go on Reddit or any number of different fan sites that we have out there, you'll occasionally see a story of a retailer and the customer who they wronged. And almost every single time, the community comes out in overwhelming support of the person who's been wronged. And I have zero doubt that a lot of times that person was wronged. They did have a bad experience. I would bet that almost every time they had a bad experience from their perspective. But watch the community's reaction, and then definitely watch it whenever the owner comes online and decides to argue. We have more social media meltdowns based on that than anything else combined. Of a retailer getting online and deciding, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to tell them how it is. It's always be the bigger person. Say, hey, look, I'm sorry this happened. Let's talk. How can we do right by you? And sometimes it'll get fixed. Fantastic. Sometimes it'll go right, and sometimes everybody's happy. And in fact, sometimes it'll go so far as that person will go back onto the review site and leave a follow-up. Those are the best, that's the best case scenario. A lot of times though, they're just gonna storm off and be angry. But what you've done is shown everybody who's watching, everybody who's reading, hey, I'm willing to listen, I'm willing to work with you, I wanna make things right. Yes, sir?
Right along with that, if it's a private conversation, you'll also have to watch what you say because people that post what is said in private up on social media as well.
Correct, yes. The point at the back of the room is even in private conversations, be aware that it can go public. They will post it on social media. And in fact, kind of the big horror story I remember seeing not too long ago, and this was with one of the retailers. We had an internet argument get rolling. Person A said, hey, this retailer did wrong by me. Retailer gets on and says, oh, no, no, I didn't. Here's the situation. They get into an argument. Well, then it switches over to text. They start texting back and forth about how each other's a terrible person. And it ended with the retailer saying, and apologies on this, but I want to be just blunt with the room. Retailer texting back to them, I hope you get AIDS. So where did that, and why do I know about that? It's because it wound up on Reddit. So, screenshots exist, people talk. If you're running a business, do not say something that you are not comfortable being in front of the whole world. Had a PR director I used to work with for a long time, and they gave me the wonderful advice: if you need everything summed up into one little bite-sized chunk, apply everything you do to the 60 minutes test. Would you be comfortable sitting down on 60 minutes and explaining your behavior? Do you think that would go over well? If the answer is no, then don't do it. That's the real simple, straightforward, easy takeaway. If you're not comfortable explaining it to the world, do not do it, because it will. It's only becoming more and more common for this stuff to leak out via screenshotted texts, via social media, so on and so forth. It will get out there. It will come back to haunt you. So, just as a quick recap on all this, I want you to go out whenever you're looking at online reviews, make sure that you keep on your customer eyeglasses. Look at things from their perspective. Also keep that perspective. Don't, remember those stars and remember how it panned out for Google. I want you to only respond when it makes sense, when you can help make it right. Take those negative conversations offline and do not argue. Just, hey, I'm sorry that happened. Let's talk. So, with online reviews, and actually why don't we jump forward a little bit, online reviews or anything else we talked about, questions, success stories, etc.
I do have a question.
Sure. A question.
I'm going to bring it up at some point this weekend, and I just love that it happened, that this kind of fits into the topic, and I apologize, I think you're great. My favorite presenter so far.
I don't like this build-up at all. You started by apologizing, which is great. Let's take this conversation offline.
So,
yes, sir.
My birthday weekend, I spent it all day following social media. Specifically, one event on social media, me being only a part-time employee at a card shop and a huge fan. And
Of me or of the game?
Both.
Oh, thank you. I'm just playing. Sorry, I should stop interrupting you. So you spent your birthday following on social media.
I did all of it.
An event every 5 seconds. Okay.
Exactly. I programmed something to make that happen, watching a screen. And 6 days, a tweet goes out. 6 days, and I follow it for 6 days. And then something doesn't occur for 6 days, and then I miss said event. And it happened to come from one of your parent companies. So even we, for the SDCC exclusives, experience some of this stuff. So I didn't know if you...
Yeah, and I would say that for a little bit of clarity, when you say that you were looking, it was surrounding the San Diego Comic-Con exclusives.
Exactly.
And you were looking for, and I'm sorry, I'm slow on the uptake today. You were looking for...
And refreshing a website every 5 seconds.
Oh, trying to see when something would...
And 6 days before it went out, very soon follow us, blah, 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 and for 6 days. That very soon never happened.
Gotcha. Well, why don't we, and this, gosh, this is terrible whenever I say take the conversation offline and then I actually want to do it. I do want to circle around and talk about what happened there, because I definitely want to drill down into more detail. That doesn't mean everything went right and it's all your fault. It means I'm curious as to find out what happened, because then we can take that sort of thing and make sure that we're trying to prevent it from happening again. So can you swing by the retail lounge or catch up with me afterwards? Yes, sir.
I was trying to understand if there was a question.
It's on topic.
Yes, it was a comment, and I was
No,
trying.
he said comment. It's fine, but it's.
It wasn't a criticism to him, actually. I was trying to dig more. What is this about? You're talking about the exclusives and
Yeah, just,
the planeswalkers.
and I loved everything he had to say.
Yeah.
Just, this was obviously a perfect example.
No, it's a great example of following along, saying, hey, we know this is going to happen. Let's keep an eye on it, and if something got missed, then yeah, we need to follow up on that and try to better ourselves. I saw there's a question back here. Yes, ma'am, in the orange.
Yeah, I have a question/comment as well.
Okay.
It takes a lot of time to do social media properly.
It takes a lot of time to do social media properly?
Yeah.
Agreed.
Can you talk a little bit more about that? Like,
Yes.
we have limited time already. How are some quick ways that we can make fast work of doing social media?
Sure. So the question is, what are some ways that we can make quick work of it because you're busy and you don't necessarily have the time to invest in social media? I'm going to give you a bad answer. Oh, sorry.
Or how can you, like, I don't know, it's hard. Because I do want to take the time to do it, but it's hard to make that time sometimes.
Agreed.
I don't want to have a crappy social media presence.
So it's hard to take the time, but you don't want to have a bad social media presence, so how do you balance those two? I appreciate that question because it's indicative of probably the biggest issue we see with social media. I want to do it, but I can't dedicate the time to doing it. And a lot of folks land in that middle ground of, I'll go ahead and put something out there and then I'll ignore it. So what I would say is there's a couple of tools out there for both Facebook and Twitter. And I'm sorry, I don't have the name of the Facebook one right off the top of my head, but I know on Twitter there's things like Hootsuite, being able to schedule some of your posts in advance. So you can say, hey, here's when I want to say these things, which means you can sit down and go through it. Say, okay, I want to make sure I'm announcing events or asking these questions at these specific times, scheduling those in advance. That said, Facebook has that built in. Fantastic, thank you. Oh, Hootsuite does, okay. Okay, fantastic. I had used Hootsuite in a couple of, a couple of years. So I was going, I know it's out there. I didn't realize they'd incorporated Facebook in there. So that said, honest answer is I would say if you don't have the time to dedicate to it, don't have the time to respond and get involved in those conversations, then don't try. And I know that's not the answer I want to be able to give to everybody, but that's the answer that puts the best face on your business. What I don't want to have out there is a Facebook page that has 82 likes and 3 posts over the last 4 months, and then somebody leaves a negative review and nobody responds to it. Because believe me, people do post to walls, and they do use that as a forum for venting their frustrations. And what you don't want to have sitting out there is people talking about you on your page and you not respond. So that said, for Facebook, because it's not as frequent of a medium, I would set aside just a little time in the morning and say, okay, at this one block of time, and maybe make it part of a routine, here's when I'm going to post on Facebook and see who liked me, who said anything on my wall, so on and so forth. Twitter, because it's so interactive, I would shy away from that. Things like Instagram and Vine, I would use those as tools to maybe feed Facebook because those two aren't as time sensitive. So, yes, sir.
So, more of a education, because again, my Twitter is ignored more than my Facebook. But if I post my Facebook and I've linked the 2 pages, does it post on Twitter as well?
You can't. Okay, so the question was, can you set up Facebook to where it's posting to Twitter and,
I understand it's just the other way around.
and it goes and potentially the other way around. I believe there's the means of doing it both ways. I would discourage you from doing that, though. Here's why. Because Facebook and Twitter are, from what you say, are 2 different mediums. So what you say on Twitter is not necessarily the message that you want to put out in the world on Facebook. and vice versa. So sometimes do not post walls of text, please, but sometimes it takes more than 140 characters to express what's actually going on in your store, especially whenever it's a major event of some sort. Going back to our talk earlier, getting involved in your community and giving all the details. So on stuff like that, I would say you can link them, but it's not always the best idea. If you do choose to, you need to make sure that keep that in mind as you're posting. You sort of had a question right behind it, and I'm not going to forget you. I see you over there.
This is more of a Twitter thing. I had a personal Twitter page before I started my business,
Mm-hmm.
and kind of built up a small following with the community, and I was, talking amongst the community. And I've driven some of that traffic from my personal page to my stores page now, but would you recommend keeping a personal Twitter page if you're in the community and you're a known face, or would you just give it up altogether and just merge it with your stores page?
So the question is, if you have a pre-established, and honestly, let's take aside the pre-established, is it a good idea to have a personal Twitter page if you're a face within the community, as well as a page or a Twitter page for your business? On that, I would say it depends on the time that you have to invest. So I can step back and look at the Wizards' point of view, that you'll notice that we've got Magic Twitter account, we've got a Pro Tour Twitter account, and then we've got individuals around the company because we have the capacity to do that. Yay us, whatever. But on the flip side, we had a question just a little while ago of if you don't have the time to dedicate to 2 Twitter accounts and do it properly, then I absolutely wouldn't do it. I like the idea of being able to say, here I am, here's a personality associated with my store, especially if it's the store owner. Once it starts getting outside of the store owner, it's a little sketchier because what happens when that person leaves?
The time thing for me is not a problem. I use TweetDeck, which you can use multiple.
Yep.
And that's not really an issue for me anyway. I mean, it's pretty easy to just say, my store's saying this, I'm saying this. But yeah, so that kind of gets to the meat of the whole thing. Is it a good idea to have both, or should you just merge them?
I would say that.
The owner, so it's not like it would be like something that works for me.
So going back to the, is it a good idea to have both? All limitations aside, should you or shouldn't you? I would say as long as you have 2 distinct voices, it's probably not a bad idea to do. If you're pretty much tweeting in the exact same way and the exact same things, just choose your business account and run with that. And then I know you had a question over here.
It's regarding Yelp, actually.
Yes.
The store I work for, it's a comic shop in Chicago. They actually got a bad review, and we haven't checked Yelp in a few months. So it's 3 months in, and we finally see this bad review. Is it still worth responding to now that, in my personal opinion, the problems within that review have been fixed?
So the question is, if you've got a bad review, you didn't see that bad review, now 3 months have passed and the problems have been resolved, but not necessarily, and I guess I would start by asking, were the problems with that individual customer resolved?
Well, she had
General complaint?
And
Then in that, so if the general comments were resolved, what I would do is I would probably go back in and respond, but I would keep it somewhere in the frame of, hey, I appreciate all of your feedback. We've really taken that to heart. We've made some changes based on this, in fact, and we invite you to come back in, check us out. That way you're showing anybody who's reading, yes, we listened and we took action on this. Now, ideal world, obviously, we always want to check and watch for those reviews as they come in and react immediately, but this gives you an opportunity to show, cool, not only will we do that moving forward, but we went back and said, hey, this bad review here, we made it right, or we're trying to make it right, and we want you to give us a second shot. Now, whether they do or not is to some degree irrelevant. What's important is that you did make those changes and that you are trying to better serve your customers. Thank you. Did you have a question? Oh, okay. Oh, okay. Yes, sir.
Just an interesting thing that popped up, and I don't know if this is happening to other people, but I just wanted to hear how you would approach this. We posted that we had the 5th edition Player's Handbook, and response was overwhelming and very positive. And then one customer all of a sudden goes, you can get it a lot cheaper at various eBay, Amazon sites on the web. This is BS. You're charging $50. And we're like, we're just charging retail. Come in and check out the store. You can get your like, you can't delete that comment, that's censorship. Or like, you're advocating
Yep.
for another source to buy the book.
So to kind of recap on that, you had a customer, you posted about the new edition of D&D being available. You had a customer come in and say, hey, here's here's places you can get it cheaper. You responded with, well, here's why you should come in. He responded with more negativity. You deleted his comments. I would say that at that point, just leave him be. The reason I say that is because one, the initial response you gave is good. Like, hey, here's all the reasons to come in. If he keeps it going, like you spoke to his original complaint. Let's just, don't argue on the internet. Whenever you get into the world of deleting comments, I'm almost always against deleting comments. And the reason I say that is because it opens up that very door, as people say, well, you're censoring me, and don't understand how censorship works. But, I was being belligerent and then you called me out on it and deleted my stuff. Yeah, but at the same time, it's creating more conversation than really needed to be there. If there's somebody who's just beating the war drum, if I can get it cheaper somewhere else, okay, dude. Like everybody who's reading that is well aware that there's always somebody cheaper. And this is something, and shockingly, I did not get to preach this to anybody today, so y'all get to hear it here. One of the things I love talking about whenever we're talking about retail experience is just quick show of hands, who here in the room is the cheapest available in their town? All right, so that's fine. And the good news is nobody raised their hands because I was going to pick on them. But even if you're the cheapest, cool, like only one person gets to be the cheapest. There's always going to be somebody cheaper unless you're that one person universally who's selling these things at a just drastically, horrific loss. That's where the experience comes in because you have to make up that difference somewhere. Why are you different? Why are you better? And in this case, that's how you responded. Here's why we're different. Here's why we're better. That's great. That's as far as the conversation needs to go. If he's going to keep trolling, don't feed the trolls.
So I should have just, instead of deleting that one comment, just walked away.
Yeah, Muhammad Ali. Just let him punch himself out, and then you'll win eventually. Yes, over here, and I'll get you in a second.
I was just going to say, it's actually more likely that our customers will come to our defense, and we don't even have to say anything in those types of situations.
There you go. So the point made over here is a lot of times customers will come to your defense, and then you don't have to say anything. That's a wonderful, an absolutely wonderful point, and I love. There's a reason I ask for a lot of audience participation in these things, is because as much as I like hearing myself talk, I like hearing the stories that y'all have better. Y'all are out there, see this every day, interact with customers every day. You saying that is a whole lot more powerful than me saying that. It's the exact same thing. Your customers coming to your defense is a lot more powerful than you saying, I'm going to stick up for myself.
They'll tell them to shut up.
Exactly. They'll say shut up when you can't.
I kind of have a follow-up question.
Yes.
Would you advise for or against giving out prices on items on social media? Because sometimes we get bad reactions that I can get that cheaper, or we get even negative reactions from the competition. Being disloyal because you're saying that's so way cheaper than I do. But you don't want to turn people away. Say, hey, go to my website to check out the prices, or call the store, or message me, I'll give you the price. So what's the right way to go about it?
So the question there is, do we recommend, are we for or against, or would I recommend being on social media promoting prizes?
Giving out the price on the product.
Oh, giving out prizes on product on social. It depends on what your end goal. So when I say that is, anytime you post, always be thinking of that in mind of what is the goal that I want to achieve with this post. Am I wanting to get players excited about all the prizes that they can win in store and all of these great things going on? Or is it just kind of like, and I'm not accusing you of this, is it to show off and kind of trump the competition? But I would look to your intent and let that intent feed whether you should be doing it or not. Honestly, I don't land on a for or against without getting really specific, but I'm more than happy to talk with you about that either after this or in the retail lounge. Anybody else? Oh, yes, sir.
What do you think is an appropriate amount of time to let lapse, or rather, how long is too long to respond to a tweet?
How long is too long to respond to a tweet? I'm a big fan of instant gratification, but too long, honestly, to some degree you'll have to play it by ear. It's going to be based on the topic. So, same day is ideal if you can get away with that. Next day sometimes is okay. Once you start getting beyond that, it's a little sketchy. But if somebody tweets you and says, "Hey, what time is Friday Night Magic starting?" and they tweet you that on Thursday, don't tell them on Saturday. But if they tweet you that on Wednesday, tell them that on Friday morning. Like, yes, by all means. So it's a little bit of a have to play it by ear thing. Yes, sir.
I wanted to follow up on the notion of customers coming to your defense.
Mm-hmm.
And if you think that, however gratifying may be to you, your customers are very vigorously defending you in a way that may actually turn off other potential customers, is there any way that you can manage that?
Yeah, so the question was if you've got particularly passionate or vigorous defense going on from your customers defending you on social media, sticking up for you, well-intentioned, but maybe putting a bad face on your business, I would jump into the fray at that point and at point blank say that, hey, while I appreciate everything that y'all are doing, let's keep perspective. Be the bigger person, be the good guy. Do exactly what you would do in store. If you have two groups arguing, go, guys, I appreciate it. I love that you're both this passionate about what you do, but look, here's the situation, here's what we're doing, and then kind of move on from there. And in fact, sometimes halfway siding with the person who was originally complaining makes you look all that much better. Of, hey, this person is just stating their opinion. That's perfectly cool. We differ on this. Here's what my normal resolution would be. But guys, let's not beat up on him. Let's not be unfair.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Exactly right. That's exactly the technique I don't know who was answering the question, but what I do is identify the person who made the original complaint. So, because the other guy who's standing up for you is thinking he's doing the right thing and he's being very, very passionate. You just got to remind him when he's going a little overboard that, you know what, John had a point, and we're going to discuss it later. That instantly diffuses it and just settles it right there.
Yep. So, anybody else? Oh, yes, sir.
Do you have any insight into using like a third-party company that you pay to like boost your website on like Google searches?
So
getting like hours.
Like search engine optimization?
Yeah.
So sure, the fun story on this. I used to, a previous employer, who shall remain nameless, I used to oversee their digital marketing. So I got to deal with a lot of search engine optimization vendors. Do y'all on occasion get a phone call from a search engine optimization vendor? Every once in a while? Yeah. Every once in a while. So here's the deal. I find a vast majority of them, that's not saying all of them are, but a vast majority of them are snake oil salesmen who will tell you that they're going to use web magic to make your search, your site rise to the top of search engine results pages. They're absolutely full of it. And in fact, a lot of the tactics that they take on are directly opposed by Google. If you need a fun person to follow on Twitter, on Facebook, on his blog, a guy named Matt Cutts, C-U-T-T-S, with Google. He is, the last title I heard for him was something like Director of Web Spam or something like that. But his job is to literally go around and make sure that people trying to raise search engine rankings the wrong way are thwarted. So just as an example, late last year, back in November, about 90+% of Google searches changed. And y'all didn't notice. It was an update called Hummingbird. And when Google said, they made the announcement in November, you know when they did it? It was October. They waited a month before they said anything. So there's a bunch of like these kind of shady SEO guys scrambling, trying to figure out what happened, while presumably Matt Cutts is sitting in his lab like laughing maniacally. But changed 90% of searches out there, and the only thing he did was made it more intent focused. When somebody types words into a search engine, what are they actually trying to hunt for? Let's serve up the best possible results. So in general, I would say that for your website, content is everything. Put good content on your website, link to your website from places that make sense. So Yelp should link to your website, Facebook should link to your website, so on and so forth. That's going to do a world of good. Paying somebody to, Most of the time when you want to pay an SEO vendor to do things, do their devil magic for your website, it's just flushing. Believe me, if you're paying somebody $500 to do that, you can pay me $400. I will do nothing to your website, and it will probably be better for it. So just, oh my gosh, steer clear of those guys.
What about Yelp advertising?
Advertising is always, I will give you the standard line on advertising: measure everything. I can't stand up here and say Yelp is good advertising or bad advertising, like the little banners you run up or race to the top of search results on Yelp. What I can say is that there's all sorts of wonderful sites out there that provide you with tracking phone numbers and tracking links. So you can say, I want to know every click that happens on this ad. I want to know every phone call I generate off of this ad. I want to know every whatever. Measure that up against your spend and say, okay, well, if it's costing me $150 to make the phone ring once, is that worth it for me? And I can't answer that for you. But that's the approach I would take, not just with Yelp, but with any advertising medium, period. Is if you're going to go out and invest and try to generate a behavior, measure, measure, measure. Anybody else? All right. Well, guys, I really appreciate your time. If you come back here at 6 o'clock, which is a little over an hour from now, little under an hour from now, oops, we will be running games night, play some D&D, play some duels, play some Kaijudo draft. And I'll see you all then. Thanks. Yeah.